For the past 4 months, a trial in France has caught global attention as a court has heard how Dominique Pelicot tranquilized his wife of 50 years so dozens of men he found online could rape her. Those 50 men, including Dominique Pelicot, stood trial for rape and sexual assault, while their survivor, Gisele Pelicot, waived her anonymity to testify. The case has started a new conversation in France about victims of abuse and the treatment of women as a whole. But will it bring the changes campaigners are calling for? I'm Lucrezia Millarini, and this is What You Need to Know. Hello and welcome to What You Need to Know, and I'm joined by our correspondents, Keedy and Rachel Townsend, who join us from France, where they've both been covering different aspects of this case. Welcome to you both. Chloe, let's start with you. Given the complexities of this case and its particular background, just tell us and give us an idea of how this has been different for you compared to other trials that you've sat through and attended.
Well, Lucrezia, this has been an extraordinary case for lots of reasons, not just the number of defendants on trial or the sheer length of time over which the trial has taken place, but the fact that we got to hear about it at all. Survivors of rape and sexual assault have a right to anonymity. Gisele Pelicot could have chosen to have this trial heard behind closed doors, but she actually fought to have it heard in public. She wanted it to be heard by the world, and she also fought to have videos which show her being abused shown to the court. And that's actually another thing which makes this case really unusual, the fact that that evidence exists. When police looked at Dominique Pelicot's laptop, they found thousands and thousands of graphic videos and images. Every time one of his co-defendants came to the house, he recorded what happened, and he actually stored those videos and images in a folder called Abuse. That's how police were able to track down those other 50 defendants, although they do say there are lots more men that they haven't been able to identify.
I mean, Chloe, just hearing some of those details there is absolutely shocking, isn't it? And it's why the case, you know, has attracted, one of the reasons it's attracted so much attention in France, but globally as well. And as you say, the fact that Gisele Pelicot gave up her anonymity, she's very much hailed a hero because she did that, isn't she? But also, you know, what have the scenes been like at court? What have you seen there?
Absolutely unprecedented. Certainly in my experience as a journalist, I've never known anything like the atmosphere inside and outside that court, in fact. Gisele Pelicot has arrived every morning looking completely calm and composed, but around her there's this sort of huge melee going on. There's the public, her supporters, people who have shown up to show her their support. They line up, they clap as she walks in, and she usually smiles and nods at them, sometimes puts her hands together to show her thanks. And then there's the queues for the actual courtrooms, not just the main room itself. There's an overflow room that's always completely full as well. And then, as you say, there is the press, the global press. When you stand outside the courtroom, there's an area for the press, and you'll hear languages from all over the world. There are actually 500 journalists accredited for this case, so that gives you some sense of the huge global fascination there has been with this trial.
Chloe, you know, given the very nature of this case, you know, we heard just a tiny bit then some of the incredibly disturbing evidence that's being heard in court. What's it been like for you as a journalist reporting on this and as a woman?
Yeah, the evidence has been incredibly distressing. We just spoke about the atmosphere outside the court, but actually the atmosphere and the emotion inside the court has really told its own story as well. Gisele Pelicot and her family are in there every day. Her daughter, Caroline, actually shouted across the courtroom one day when her father, Dominique Pelicot, was giving evidence. She believes she was also abused by her father because photos of her were found on his laptop. He denied this in court, and she shouted at him across the courtroom, "You're a liar. I'm sick of your lies. You will die lying." The lawyers have also had very heated exchanges, shouting at each other across the court, often when Gisele Pelicot's lawyers feel that she's being subjected to inappropriate questions. But you just asked how I feel about it as a journalist, and I think what I always come back to every time I cover this case is that in the middle of all of that, Gisele Pelicot is sat there. And I think however any of us feel about what we're seeing and hearing, it's absolutely impossible to imagine what that must be like for her.
I mean, we use the word brave to describe her, really, but that doesn't quite do it justice, in my view. Do you think that her decision to waive her anonymity was, I suppose, quite calculated on her part, because she was making a statement, she was making a point, and she wants to effect some kind of change now because of what she did?
Yeah, and she's been very, very clear about that. She said that one of the reasons she did it was because that she thinks it is time, in her words, for the shame to switch sides. She's also said she thinks society needs to change its view on rape. She says a rapist is not just someone that you meet in a dark car park late at night. He can also be found in the family and among friends. I think she did make that decision. I think it has been absolutely exhausting for her. Her family and her lawyers have said that. I asked her lawyer this week whether she was still glad that she had made that decision to put herself through a public trial, and he said yes. He didn't hesitate. He said it was really important to her. It's been much harder, much bigger than anything she could ever have been prepared for, but she never ever regretted it.
Chloe, thank you for the moment. Rachel, I just want to talk to you. You're there waiting, you're patiently waiting there at the airport, actually, aren't you? Because you've just arrived. You've spoken to a cross-section of people, different ages, different genders. I mean, I can only come from this speaking as a woman, so that's my perspective. But is there, I suppose, a collective takeaway about all the people you've spoken to, or are they differing perspectives around this case?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And, it is being discussed a lot among everyday people. It is on the TV a lot and is in the French newspapers, throughout the duration of the trial. The overwhelming dominant feeling is horror from both men and women, but there are different perspectives among men and women. They both feel angry, but there is also a defiance among women, and they feel inspired by Gisele. We've spoken in our last visit here last week, and we can watch this report on ITV News, but we've spoken to other victims of sexual abuse who've not been able to come forward. They didn't have that confidence, or have tried to come forward, but they have found it so hard to get even a case to trial that they have given up. We spoke to one lady who said she was raped by an ex-partner. It took that case 8 years to come to court, and it only came to court because there were 16 other women who came and with the same story, and it shouldn't take 16, 17 women to get it that far. So they have a defiance about them. We've spoken to men who acknowledge that men are angry, but their worry is that they're not angry enough, and that they're talking about this case because of its sensational nature rather than it prodding them for meaningful questions about French society.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You say we're only talking about it now because of this case, because of its profile. Well, this is something we should be talking about all of the time. And the survivors of sexual abuse, they're battling not just the actual abuse itself, but also a system, aren't they? So what are campaigners there? What are they fighting for? They want a change in the law, don't they?
Absolutely. And their priority really is to have consent included in the legal definition of rape here. And it is remarkable that it's not really. It's classed currently as an act of violence and coercion, but consent isn't mentioned. Now, politicians from different parties have said that they will support the inclusion of consent in French law. Obviously, in France at the moment, there is political upheaval, and it will take some settling down. But they want further, more far-reaching measures too. The government have increased the number of hospitals across France where victims and survivors can report rape, but they want big investment, and they want that investment to go to education primarily, and also centres for survivors to go to. So it's not so difficult to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, but Rachel, there's always a concern, once the drama of the trial ends, that the momentum around it will also die, and that moment for change will go with it. That's a fear, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a fear, and it's very, for want of a better word, it's on trend to talk about it now. there are really strong feminist groups out here, and I don't think they will allow the momentum to pass on this. There's tens of thousands that have been protesting in cities across France throughout the duration of this trial. They want to keep the pressure on, and with the change in French Parliament, I think they will do that. I think many of them want to get more men involved in the conversation. In a way, it is tricky for men because some men are horrified by it, but they don't want to speak on behalf of women, and so they feel that it is not their place to talk. But women largely want men to talk about it. They want them to educate their sons, and they want them to pick up and challenge their peers if they make comments that are simply not acceptable.
It's exactly that, isn't it? It's about being allies, and that's how things change. And you definitely need, as you say, it is that education factor. You need it's a start from how little boys talk to girls and all the rest of it. It's about those attitudes right from the beginning. Rachel, thank you so much. Chloe, final question to you. You know, we look at certain court cases and we're describing them as, you know, feeling seismic at the time. You covering this case, has it felt like this to you? And do you think, as Rachel was saying, that, you know, some real change in France will come now?
I think it does feel seismic. I've spent a lot of time here in Avignon. When you walk around on the streets, Gisele Pelicot's name is painted, is plastered on every wall, on every corner, and we know that's not just happened here. Obviously, Rachel's just described what she's been seeing in Paris as well. I think it does feel seismic. It does feel like there's been a shift. As Rachel says, there's this kind of momentum now. But I think we'll have to wait and see after this trial whether that translates into any kind of real lasting change.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, and we're approaching the end of the year, and it's one person's name who I will certainly remember from this year. It will be Gisele Pelicot. Thank you both for talking to me, Chloe and Rachel. Thank you so much. And just to thank all of you for joining. If you want to watch the full reports, head over to the newsreel over on ITVX, and don't forget to subscribe to What You Need to Know and check out our back catalogue for other quick briefings on a range of headline topics. Until the next time, thank you.